we'll be looking at the text in a philosophical perspective, which is going to require us being a little creative here and there. We're going to have to read between the lines, because once again, the point of this isn't to just understand the text. The point of this ultimately is to understand ourselves, our own lives. And so we're using the text to help do that. So, like I mentioned, I'm not a literary scholar. I'm not a scholar in any sense, really. But the idea is there might be questions about this work that I don't know. I've only read this a few times, and it's a really wonderful work. There's a lot going on in it. One person I was reading describes this as one of the early modern existentialist works. Usually Charles Dickens isn't regarded as an existentialist. Sometimes, Dostoevsky is sort of seen as one of the early literary existentialists. But what does it mean to be an existentialist? It can mean a bunch of different things. The way I'm going to be thinking of that is you can reflect on your life in terms of your actions. Hey, here's these actions are good and these actions are bad. Right? This type of character trait is good, this character trait is bad. One way to think about what existentialism is it's not the reflection on action, but it's a reflection on being, a reflection on existence. Not what's the meaning of this action or that action, but what's the meaning of just existing at all. And what Charles Dickens is going to be doing with this short story, or this story, is he's going to be trying to help us understand the meaning of existing, the meaning of living, through a reflection of death, right? What's the first sentence of the story? First sentence of the story is, Marley was dead to begin with, right? So this is a story about death. There's no beating around the bush here. This is about death. And like the short story we read a bit ago, The Death of Ivan Ilyich, it begins with death, right? And it's using death as the kind of like the mirror for thinking about life, for thinking about the meaning of life. Right? So another couple themes that are going to be present throughout this whole work, right? You get the relationship between life and death, right? You get the relationship, the interplay of time, of the past, the present, the future, right? What's the meaning of the past, the present, and the future? Is the past fixed, right? Is the future fixed? Is the future entirely open? Does the future have anything to do with the past? Right? What's the meaning of the present? Sometimes it seems like the meaning of the present is to avoid the past or to try to go back to the past. Right? You're regretting what has happened. You're wanting to hold on to what has happened, or you're pushing into the future. So sometimes it seems the present moment, the meaning of it is to flee from it. It's either go back to the past or to get to the weekend. What's the meaning of Monday? The meaning of Monday is to get to Friday. Right now, if that's your outlook on life, then the present doesn't have any intrinsic worth. And so I think what Charles Dickens is going to try to show is the meaning of Christmas. It's a story about Christmas, but Christmas is going to have a meaning which, on the one hand, is liturgical, right? It's rooted in Christianity. But I think he's also going to say, but it bears fruits. That event bears fruits in a worldly way. And so I think he's trying to show how, even if you're not a religious person, the fruits of Christmas get dispersed, right? And I think for Dickens, as we're going to see in the life of Scrooge here, is that Christmas is about coming to see the present as containing the past and the future and everything. It's like, think about, this is a little theological sidetrack, but the incarnation is a moment, an event that in some sense gives all meaning to the past, it gives all meaning to the future. It's one event, one particular moment in time where the past and the future get sort of completely rewritten, reoriented, right? So it's that one event, right, that makes the entirety of time significant. It gives it an entirely new meaning, right? And so when you know the story of Scrooge, right? You know Scrooge is this guy that he sees his past, and then he sees the present, and then he sees the future, and then he wakes up and he wants to buy poor people turkeys, right? And why does he want to buy poor people turkeys? Is it just because he's like, oh great, I'm not going to die anymore? I thought I was going to die, and now I'm not going to die. No, it has nothing to do with that. Scrooge is fully aware that he's still going to die, but what he sees is, it doesn't, in one sense, I'm going to die and I'm fully going to die, but that makes the present moment so much more rich. The fact that I'm going to die is what makes the present moment valuable, right? If I don't really think I'm going to die, then, screw today. I'll just do what I need to do today. I'll just put that off for tomorrow. And then when tomorrow comes, I'll just put that off for tomorrow. Right? So the idea is if meaning's not found in the present moment, then it's not going to be found anywhere, because in some sense, the only reality there is the present moment. And so this issue of time is really the meaning of Christmas for Dickens, because it's the meaning it's the meaning of eternity, right? I mean, time, the past, present, and future is sort of like the temporal version of eternity. So you get the interplay of life and death, you get the interplay of those three moments of time, past, present, future. You get also the interplay of I'm going to call it the afterlife and the, what would you call it? The here and now? How about that? The here and now, okay. And even at the end of this stave, the first stave, you get the ambiguities of, here are these ghosts. These ghosts are sort of dead, but they're here among the living, and, it's unclear, what world are they living in? So it's kind of a mixing of worlds, the world of the dead and the world of the living. And I think Dickens is also trying to show, he makes that point about Marley. Marley has spent many a day sitting by Scrooge's side, and Scrooge didn't see him and notice him. And it's kind of like what he's trying to do, what Dickens is trying to do, is he's trying to blend these two worlds to show that they're actually, in some sense, overlap. Unfortunately, people who are Christians typically think that here's these two worlds. Here's the afterlife, and here's the here and now, and they have nothing to do with each other. You die, and then you go there, and you're it's kind of like you take the elevator up, and you're gone. And I think what Dickens is doing here is similar to what, many years later, C.S. Lewis does in this work, The Weight of Glory, where it's like, what you're living now is either hell or heaven. You're either in hell right now or you're in heaven right now. It's but through a glass darkly, imperfectly, right? It's not the fullness of either one. And so you can kind of change worlds. You can go from one world to the next. And so it's one moment, if you're living a life of charity, a life of love, or however you want to put it, you're participating in the life of heaven. You're participating in a type of eternal life in a temporal fashion. But if you're not doing that, then you're living in hell. You're living in a temporal fashion the life of hell if you're not living a life of charity, a life of love. And so it's kind of do you know where you are? Do you know what you're I sound like I'm on a soapbox in the middle of a square like a religious person. You are in hell right now, you don't know it. No, it's not like that. The idea is Dickens is trying to present, don't think about the afterlife as after this life. It's something that you are in some ways experiencing now. Just as the relationships of the past and the future and the present, where does the future start and the present stop? Where does the past end and the present begin? It's they're all kind of interspersed and intertwined with each other. And that's the way that I think Dickens is trying to think about this. Eternity and temporality aren't easily separated from each other. They're kind of They're kind of, they overlap. They overlap is one way to think of it. Okay, so those are some themes that are going to come up throughout well, at least those are some of the themes that I want to draw throughout this work. And that's why this is like an existential work, because it's a focus on the meaning of existing. Right? Don't think about the value of life, what makes a happy life as something that you need to do. I think what Dickens is trying to say is, no, the happy life doesn't consist in having to do anything. It consists in having to actually just be grateful for, what you already have, which is existence. It's life, right? Life in some sense is intrinsically happy. Time in some sense is already bears its own meaning. It's like to have life is already like the greatest gift you could ever have, right? Doing something with it might be then the fruit of that original awareness of being grateful, thankful for having this life. But if you're not grateful for living today, you're not going to do anything today. You'll just sit on your I was going to use a newsy line because I'm going to use it, but you're going to sit on your can and you're just going to waste it because you don't think there's anything good in just existing today, right? If you think there's something really significant or valuable in existing, that's where the motivation for action comes, right? And so that's why I think this is an existential work, because it places the emphasis on existence prior to let's look at the actions of Scrooge. It's not that Scrooge needs to reflect on economics, it's that Scrooge needs to reflect on being. He needs to reflect on what it means to live, right? He doesn't need to take classes on ethics, he just needs to actually sort of wake up to the meaning of life. Any questions about any of that? I'm like talking out my ear, as they say, with a lot of this stuff. So I'm like making stuff up as I'm going. So if you feel like you don't understand, or you feel like there's stuff that doesn't make sense, or you want to talk about, feel free to ask questions about it. Good. So the first page and a half of Stave 1 is about Marley. And it's specifically about Marley's death. So it begins, right, Marley was dead to begin with. And then the narrator goes on and on and on to point out, there's no doubt about this, right? Everything in the world sort of pointed to the fact that Marley was dead. And then he says, once again, oh, by the way, did I tell you that Marley was dead? Right? And don't forget that he was really dead. He was like, how dead? How dead was he?
As a doornail.
He was dead as a doornail, man. And then he's like, I don't know what's really dead about a doornail. I would have thought he was as dead as a coffin nail, because coffin nails are more dead than doornails, but whatever. And then he says, oh, by the way, did I tell you that Marley was dead? Okay, so very clearly, it's kind of over the top. He's making this point, the narrator, Charles Dickens here, is making the point that we got to really understand death. We got to understand the fact of death. Okay, so you get Marley is going to be dead. Okay. So, and then look at the bottom of, I'm going to use my page number because I'm using this edition, the Everyman Library edition, with a nice picture of, I was going to say Fozziewig, but that's from the Muppets Christmas Carol, dancing on the cover. Okay, so this is page 9, the very first page of the whole thing. Scrooge never painted out old Marley's name, so they shared a business together, right? And it was named Scrooge and Marley, right? So it says, there it stood years afterwards above the warehouse door, Scrooge and Marley. Okay, so Scrooge and Marley. See, this is a super important 2 sentences here. The firm was known as Scrooge and Marley. Sometimes people new to the business called Scrooge, and sometimes Marley, but he answered to both names. It was all the same to him, right? So whether he was Scrooge or whether he was Marley, potato, it doesn't matter. What does that tell you about the relationship between Scrooge and Marley? If it's like, hey, you call me this person or that person, it doesn't really matter. What's the significance in that?
They're kind of like almost the same person. Like they don't really care to be differentiated.
Yeah, they're like the exact same person. Whatever Marley's going to say, Scrooge is going to say. Whatever Scrooge is going to say, Marley's going to say. They're going to make this decision to kick these orphans out, onto the street so they can have their frostbitten teddy bears, right? The other one's going to be the exact same. They're not going to differ in any way. That's really significant. Scrooge is Marley in a way. They have the same soul. They have the same character. They have the same life. Does that make sense? Kind of looking on that? And this is what Dickens is trying to present in this. And he's beginning by saying, Marley's dead. Who's alive? Scrooge. Marley's dead, Scrooge is alive, but they have the same soul. In one sense, they're the same. So this is going to be a question about a living person confronting his own death. Right? Scrooge, a living person confronting his own death, which is the ghost of Marley. Which is that's like his own death. Because Marley and him are being depicted as the same person.
It kind of reminds me of Jekyll and Hyde.
Yeah, I've never read Jekyll and Hyde, but I think there's something
like
very
multiple persons kind of come out in one, except it's more of a spirit thing.
Yeah.
Marley being a spirit versus an actual side of a person.
Yeah. There are these different. Sometimes these are you get contrasts, like shadow figures or like doubles, doppelgangers or whatever. And I think what you get in here, Scrooge and Marley are supposed to kind of represent the same thing, but in different. It's like here's Scrooge's death. Right? This is what Scrooge looks like when he's dead. And this is what Scrooge looks like when he's alive. I think is sort of the implicit suggestion being made by Dickens here. Okay, this is great. Scrooge, was the only, quote, friend, if you want to call this friend, the only friend of Marley, right? The sole executor, the sole this, the sole friend, right? The sole mourner. And then this is really important, right? This is the person closest to Marley. And here's how Scrooge reacts to his death. And even Scrooge was not so dreadfully cut up by the sad event, but that he was an excellent man of business on the very day of the funeral, and solemnized it with an undoubted bargain. So it's like the great good, the great liturgical acts, done by Scrooge on this, this day is he cuts a bargain for people. Because it's good business, right? It's sort of like, hey, yeah, it's all business, right? So, I mean, Scrooge does not at all see Marley's death as anything significant, right? Marley's death isn't significant to Scrooge when it happens, right? Then you go on to get the idea that Scrooge and Marley are the same, and then here's the description of Scrooge, which is a really great. Incredible description. It shows you how good of an author Dickens is. So here it is. He was a tight-fisted hand at the grindstone, Scrooge, a squeezing, wrenching, grasping, scraping, clutching, covetous old sinner. Right, once again, hopefully no one ever describes you in such terms, but you never know. Hard and sharp as flint, from which no steel had ever struck out generous fire. So we're going to start to get this imagery of what Scrooge is just pure coldness, right? Right. So no fire, no warmth could come from Scrooge, which is warmth, fire. That's all imagery for something, right? It's imagery for compassion. It's imagery for charity, for love, for secret and self-contained and solitary as an oyster, or if you're a newsie, an oyster. And the cold within him, this is an important line, the cold within him froze his old features, nipped his pointed nose, shriveled his cheek, stiffened his gait, made his eyes red, his thin lips blue, and spoke out shrewdly in his grating voice. So what makes his lips turn blue and what makes him cold is not the outside, the external, it's the internal cold. So this is an important. This is going to occur a couple times throughout these next few pages. Is that Scrooge's coldness originates in him, and it's what makes the room cold. It's what makes Bob Cratchit. We don't get Bob's name quite yet, but it's what gets the clerk that works for him cold. It's what makes the people that walk by on the sidewalk cold. It's not the temperature, that's outside. It's the fact that Scrooge is internally sort of the origin of coldness, the origin of like cold-heartedness, right? So he's like a Grinch, right? Okay, so it originates internally. Here you go again. He carried his own low temperature always about within him. So his low temperature wasn't from the external, it was something he generated. He carried it out within him. He iced his office in the dog days and didn't thaw at 1 degree at Christmas. External heat and cold had little influence on Scrooge. So you're really trying to get a depiction of the soul of Scrooge. That's what Dickens is trying to do. He's trying to show you the soul of Scrooge. And he's trying to describe the coldness of his soul as what just sort of like can be seen in an external fashion in the coldness of the office, the coldness of the frost, the fog, all of that gets depicted externally. Does that kind of make sense? What's going on here? Okay, so once again, hyperbole, but for the sake of trying to like get a paradigm of a person who we sort of in some sense all have some Scrooge in us, if you will. Okay, like the only difference between the hard sleet, cold sleet rain, the only difference is that sometimes the sleet comes down really like beautifully, and Scrooge never does, right? Sometimes you can see the beauty of the sleet coming down. That's the only good thing about it, and Scrooge doesn't even have that. Okay, so this is this theme is the really important thing to recognize is let's put it as he's dead. Marley is dead, and so Scrooge comes to face his death in Marley. And what's Scrooge's initial response? So we're jumping ahead just a little bit. What's Scrooge's initial response to the ghost? The ghost comes, and what's his first? Over the course of a couple of pages, what's Scrooge's sort of continued response to that? What does Scrooge typically, or what does he think about Marley's ghost? Does he think it is Marley's ghost? What does he think it is?
Well, wasn't he trying to just be like, he's not actually seeing it, he's just trying to trick himself like he's sick or something?
Yeah, he's like, look, man, I just ate. This is where you get like that line about the gravy. Yeah, it's on this page 21. You may be a bit of undigested beef, a blot of mustard, a crumb of cheese, a fragment of undone potato. There's more gravy than grave about you, right? So he's trying to like persuade himself that he's not looking at Marley's ghost, right? I'm not looking at Marley's ghost. And why is he trying to persuade himself that he's not looking at Marley's ghost? Just because he doesn't believe in ghosts? It's not merely that, right? It's not just that he's like a scientific outlook kind of guy. Why is Scrooge hesitant, trying to resist that this is Marley's ghost?
He doesn't want to accept that he can die.
Yeah, because he doesn't want to accept that this is Marley's ghost. This is my fate, because Marley and I are the same. It's like he doesn't want to accept the fact that he is mortal, that he's going to die, right? And so the denial that this is Marley's ghost is the denial of his own death, right? Because we just said that they're the same. So deny that this is Marley's ghost is to say, I'm not looking at an image of my dead wife, right? I don't want to look at my dead wife, right? So that's why he goes on about this. And the next paragraph indicates this, right? Right after he says there's more gravy than grave about you, you get Scrooge was not much in the habit of cracking jokes. He wasn't the sort of guy you would call funny. Nor did he feel in his heart by any means waggish them, right? So it's not like he was feeling like making a joke. So he's not in the habit of cracking jokes, but he doesn't really feel like making a joke then. So why the hell does he make a joke? The truth is that he tried to be smart as a means of distracting his own attention and keeping down his terror, for the specter's voice disturbed the very marrow in his bones. So this is where your Pascalian censors should be going crazy here, right? So the truth is that Scrooge was trying to distract himself, distract his own attention from the terror of seeing himself, seeing his own life, right? He doesn't want to see that. And deep down, Scrooge knows that he is Marley, right? Going back to that first page of the whole story. So he doesn't want this to be true. This can't be true. Because if this is true, then this means that I'm like, well, you fill in the words for how you want to describe Scrooge as a person. But right, this cannot be my fate. Right? This cannot be the type of person I am. It's almost like if someone tells you, you're a really rude, selfish, arrogant person, you think the world revolves around you. You're like, that can't be me. There's no way that can be me. Right? Because if it were true, it would be an unpleasant fact, right? And so of course you don't want to be open to seeing that that's what you are. And so Scrooge is like completely resistant to this because he doesn't want to be open to the fact that his fate is the fate of Marley here. Sort of slowly starting to see. Does that resonate? You kind of see that as the case? And so the way this develops, the ghost comes, and you get the slow development that Marley is trying to prove to Scrooge that he's dead. Once again, going back to the very beginning of the thing, he's dead. This guy's dead. He's really dead. He's truly, truly dead. And then Scrooge is like, no, he's not dead. This guy's not dead. This isn't real. This isn't the ghost of a dead person. And that's due to the fact that he's wanting to resist this point we were just making. And so Marley tries to prove to himself again and again and again, kind of slowly. And he does this in different ways. There's that wrap tied around his jaw, and he undoes that wrap. And what happens to his jaw? It drops down. And he walks through the doors. And eventually what happens is Scrooge is slowly starting to come to this acceptance that this is Marley. This is dead Marley, which means this is dead Scrooge. This is my future. This is me here. Right? And so he goes, he makes one last effort with the toothpick, right? He says, I could swallow a toothpick, and I would be haunted by goblins for weeks. And then the only response that Marley gives is just a wail. And the wail, the cry, it's sort of too hard to deny. And here's the thing that Marley says in response to this. Scrooge actually asks, "Why do you trouble me?" And then Marley's response is, "Man of the worldly mind." Right. So this is Scrooge's problem. His blindness to this is that he's of a worldly mind. What that means, you can go back to Plato, you can go back to Pascal, right? He can't see out of the cave, right? He's stuck. He's enslaved to shadows. Man of the worldly mind. Do you believe in me or not? Right. So Marley needs Scrooge to believe in him. And why? Because why does Marley come to visit Scrooge? Why does he come to visit Scrooge? She says, here's why I came. What's the point for it? Anyone remember? Is it just to taunt him and scare him? He comes to give him something. Not a physical object.
Good. Just warn him of the next ghost to come?
Yeah, he comes to give him a message, and he says, "Hey, I'm here to help you. There's a chance, you've got a small chance, right?" He basically says, you might be saved from this fate. 3 ghosts are going to come and visit me, three spirits, and there's some hope of being saved from this fate. There's a hope of being saved from the death that you're going to have, right? Which is like, hey, you might be able to not face this death. And the only way he's going to be able to avoid this death is if he first and foremost accepts that this is the death that's coming to him. There's a weird paradox here. He's got to realize the life he's living truly is leading to this. And in order to prevent that, he has to first accept that that's the life he's living. In order to live a good life, suppose you're not living a good life. In order to live a good life, you've got to first and foremost acknowledge, I'm not living a good life. This is the whole point of what story that we read just 3 weeks ago? Ivan Ilyich, right? This is the whole point of Ivan Ilyich. Scrooge and Ivan Ilyich are they're like twins, man. They're just, one's Russian, the other's British. Okay, so remember Ivan, the very end of his life, he's slowly starting to see man, I screwed this up. I really botched this thing called life. This really sucks because I'm dying and I'm like on my deathbed, and I realized I completely screwed this up. I did not live a good life, which is the greatest admission of Ivan, because it's only when he recognizes that he is not living a good life that it's possible for him to let it go. Because if you think you're living a good life, you're like, yeah, man, things are kind of good, things are okay. You're not going to like let it go. But once you recognize I'm living in hell, that's when you're capable of letting it go. Right? You can't let something go unless you really think you're living in hell. And so the ghost comes to help Scrooge see, man, you're living in hell. You don't have to die to be in hell. You're in hell now, and you just don't even know it. And Scrooge needs to see that Marley's real, that he's actually really living in hell. And once he does, that's when he can let go of that life, which then strangely avoids that death. Right? He cannot suffer the death of hell if he gives up the life of hell. Right? There's a lot of like paradox in this, but this is, I mean, it's really, he's doing a methodology of conversion. How does conversion happen? Right? This is really like an interesting psychological thing.
I was going to say another thing that kind of is similar between Ivan and Scrooge, and also one thing that's different is Ivan kind of started off on the right path a little bit before. It was when he got the diagnosis that he really became isolated. It kind of reminded me a lot of like Scrooge.
Yeah.
Towards the end, they both had to work to accept that they were going to die in their fate.
Yeah, so they both come to realize the fact that they're going to die. I think Ivan, from early on, he also doesn't live a very good life. But we're going to see a little bit about Scrooge's past. So you don't want to speculate too much about Scrooge yet, because there might be something good about the fact of where his origin is, his past. Just as, remember, in Ivan, he thinks about something, and then he is reminded to these good memories of the past when he was a kid, the plums. Like, hey, do you want these prunes? And then it reminds him back to the past when he was a kid with his sister, and they were in their father's this and that. And so, like, there's something good about the past that we forget, we lose sight of, because we get stuck in, we're important people, we have jobs, we have education, we have money, we have this and that. And I think this is like the fate of Scrooge and the fate of Ivan. This is the fate of all of us, I think. We lose sight of the meaning of life because we become so good at doing, so good at acting. We become so good at being professionals in whatever it is we're going to do, or if it's not professional, we become so enamored in shadows. Okay, so that's another parallel there. Yeah. Any other comments about that phenomenon, the Scrooge and Marley? Marley's presenting facts of his death to Scrooge. Scrooge eventually comes to accept it. Mm-hmm.
I don't really have, I don't know if I can word it super well, but I'm kind of wondering, how do you get to the Scrooge point where you don't have any internal motivation change? Because it seems like the nephew, he's got he's motivated to live a good life. How are people content in that wretched state, like Pascal talks about? I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if there's.
Yeah. The easy answer. I'll give you the easy answer. Just wait. Keep reading. Keep reading. Stage 2 and 3. You got to know a little bit about Scrooge's past and his present, the upcoming present. So that's going to be like stage 2 and 3. That you're going to kind of see a little bit more of how that happens. Because it's not like Scrooge woke up one day thinking I want to be a bastard today. No one wakes up thinking I just want to be a miserable rectional sinner. No one does that. They just wake up to do that. But you can find yourself over the course of a couple decades becoming that, because you get a little selfish here, you get a little selfish there, a little bit of ego here, a little bit of self-sufficiency here. I don't need you, and that slowly over the course of a couple decades accumulates until you become a bastard. That's the technical term in Dickens, scholarship. So, okay. So, yeah, it's a good question. It needs to be asked. But I think in order to really answer it, we got to look at the next stage, next spirit. We need more. You can think of these spirits, these ghosts. What are ghosts? Dickens isn't like saying, "Hey, I really believe in ghosts." This is all just sort of like kind of fantasy type stuff. But they're supposed to be representative like windows of insight, right? You can see into the world in a different way, and you can see into truth in a deeper way. And so all these are going to reveal something to Scrooge. Marley's ghost is a window into Scrooge's death, and he's going to die, right? He sees his death. Scrooge eventually comes to see his death. The first spirit is like a window into the past. Hey man, look at really, what does your past really mean, right? It's kind of like you can live your life, and you think you know what your past is. My guess is by the time you guys hit 40s, your past is going to mean something very different from what you think it means now, right? The friendships that you thought were important, the things you did that you thought were bad or good or whatever, it's all going to you'll see it in eyes that are kind of different. It's not going to be entirely like a newness, but it's going to have a different flavor. I don't know a better way to describe it. It's going to mean something slightly different when you get a little bit older, to get a little bit more perspective, and you can start to see things differently. And this is what the Ghost of Christmas Past, or the Ghost of the Past, is going to do for Scrooge. It's going to give him some insight into that. And each of these ghosts are going to give him insight into different aspects of his life, which helps him to see more clearly, so that he can finally see, the meaning of life. The meaning of life is going to be had if you understand the meaning of the past, the meaning of the present, and the meaning of the future. Because the meaning of existing isn't going to matter if you don't see that. So these ghosts are, you can think of them as like windows, ways of having insight into something, into truth. Does that make sense? Does that sound good? Find that? Okay. Okay, any other questions, comments, thoughts? I'll just keep blabbing with one of those. Okay, so here's the meaning of, I kind of mentioned this already a little bit, but you see this here on page 12. So this is a book about Christmas, but it's not a book just about Christmas. I mean, you can read this book at any time of the year, because the theme, although it's centered around Christmas, the theme is a universal theme. There's a little letter, it might be, if you have this book, it might be in here somewhere. No, it was a letter that Dickens wrote. He talks about Christmas is something that is it's universal. It's always there. Christmas is something that's always true. That's always happening. Just as if you think, I mean, in Christian terms, like the incarnation is something that's always happening. It's an eternal fact. It's not merely like a historical event in the past. Okay, so here's where Dickens presents the meaning of Christmas. This is on 12. Because this is going to contrast with Scrooge's view of Christmas, which is, as you saw just the paragraph before this on 12, it's a time for paying bills without money, time for finding yourself a year older but not an hour richer, time for balancing your books and having every item through a round dozen of months against you, right? So Christmas is just a waste. It's a waste. That's contrasted with this other view of Christmas, which the nephew has, which is, as he says, there are many things for which I might have derived good, by which I have not profited. Right? So this is a direct response to Scrooge's value of the world. I have to profit on this in order for this to be good. And it's kind of like, hey, why do I want to talk to this person? Is it gonna be a good networking thing? Are they gonna help me to like climb the ladder? If not, I'm not at all interested in talking to them. If so, then I'm interested in talking to them. It's kind of like why you do what you do is determined by whether you can profit. That's Scrooge's sort of outlook for life. And the nephew says, no, I'm I see goods that didn't give me any profit that are still worth pursuing, like playing little games, having snowball fights and things. For Scrooge, that's like a waste of time. But for the nephew, like that's, playing hide and seek with kids is like, one of the most meaningful things enjoyable things that you can do. Right, so he says, there are many things that I've derived good that I haven't profited from. Christmas among the rest, right? So here's a good that we don't profit from one bit. There's no external profit from this. And it might actually cost us a lot of money. Christmas is an expensive season, right? It says, Christmas among the rest, we don't profit from in that way. But I'm sure I have always thought of Christmas time, when it comes around, apart from the veneration due to its sacred name and origin, if anything belonging to it can be apart from that, as a good time. So Christmas time is always a good time. And that little, parenthetical note there, apart from the veneration due to the sacred name and origin of it, so which is like the incarnation. And he's basically saying like, Christmas is a good time, a lot of joy, a lot of fun. You have eggnog, you get to have snowball fights, you don't have to go to class, and all that fun stuff. And he's saying, it might turn out that is, I'll erase this. That is, that's the fruits. Those are the fruits of. Wait, I should do it this way. Those are the fruits of the incarnation of Christ. Really, I mean, this is sort of once again a little theological sidetrack, but it's like. The incarnation is what makes it possible for you to take joy in just wasting time doing a puzzle with cousins or whatever. It's like, yeah, this isn't something I normally do, and I've got like a lot of other things. I got deadlines, and I got this project and that project, and all, but like all that stuff can wait. All that stuff doesn't matter because it's almost like the meaning of life is in the here and the now and the present, and it's what allows you to sort of squander a lot of your worldly day-to-day pursuits, and all that stuff can like take a break. It can go on holiday, and you can do things that are almost sort of pointless just for the sake of the joy that they give, right? So does that kind of make sense? So the idea is the joy that life has is a fruit of the incarnation. It seems to subtly suggested by Dickens. Now, Dickens was an interesting Christian. He was sort of a Unitarian, meaning like he wasn't like a real doctrinal, high liturgical Christian, but he did have a profound interest and respect and devotion to sort of the main thesis of Christianity, and you can kind of see it, manifesting itself here. Okay, so then he goes on. So this Christmas time is a good time of joy. Not like you don't have to be even religious at all to enjoy Christmas time, right? Right. There's something that's just about this as a season that's been developed, and maybe it's developed because of this initiative. But even if you don't know that, you can still enjoy all the goods of that time. And he says it's a time. It's kind, forgiving, charitable. It's a pleasant time. The only time I know of in the long calendar of the year when men and women seem to be one consent to open their shut-up hearts freely. Right? So it's the one time of year where humans can open up their shut-up hearts freely, and to think of people below them as if they really were fellow passengers to the grave, and not another race of creatures bound on other journeys. Right? So he's basically saying, like, in Christmas, it's not like me versus you, I have these things, you have these things. There's this great story, I think it was in World War II. There was a battle that stopped and people celebrated Christmas. Have people heard about this? Anyone know about this?
Germans.
Yes.
World
World War I. World War II probably would have happened then. But World War I, right? Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. Like, you have these two sides that are able to recognize, like, hey, we're going to kill each other tomorrow, but today, let's just not kill each other. Let's just, like, enjoy life for today, which is a really incredible, like, thing to happen. Like, but you're going to die tomorrow, or I'm going to die tomorrow, so why can we eat together today? It's like, because there's something bigger going on here than just, killing each other. Okay, so that recognition that we're both fellow passengers to the grave, I mean, it seems morbid. Like, Christmas is about death. How is Christmas about death? If you want to get like deep theologically, like the incarnation is about death. Why did God become man? To die, right? I mean, he became man to die, right? But it's almost like you don't appreciate his becoming man unless you understand his death, and the death, in some sense, is the first act of redemption is in the incarnation, it seems, because that's what makes it possible to die. It makes it possible to die by being born, right? You can't be converted unless you're first, entering into the possibility of death, right? And so there's something really, pretty amazing that Dickens is doing here. And the recognition of the fellow passengers to the grave. This also is a tie with Ivan Ilyich. There's a character in Ivan Ilyich who recognizes that he is a fellow passenger to the grave with Ivan. Do you remember who this character was? Gerasim, the servant, the guy who holds Ivan's leg up because it hurts him a lot, so he holds his leg on his shoulders. And he's like, no, this is no trouble. You're dying, I'm going to die too. And I just hope that someone's going to do this for me when I'm sitting dying of an ailment, and they're going to do something stupid and foolish, like let me put my feet on their shoulders. Right, and that spirit, I think, is the way that Dickens is describing it's the Christmas spirit, which sounds cliched, unfortunately, but it's the spirit of we're fellow passengers to the grave. There's nothing that I have that I can hold over you. I'm not superior to you in one bit. You're not superior to me in one bit. You're not lower than I am. I'm not lower than you. Here's one thing that we all know. We were born naked and we're going to die, and we are on the same journey. We're all on the exact same journey. And he goes on the next page. I won't read this, but he talks about this is page 15. Talks about the Lord Mayor, his stronghold, right, his mighty mansion, and then he contrasts this with the little tailor. And they both do the same things. They both buy Christmas trees. They both get drunk. They both, play games. And whether you're the little tailor who's poor, because he can't pay his bills, and so he's going to be evicted, or whether you're the mayor and you have all the money you ever need, you're still going to do the exact same things and take joys in the exact same things. And the meaning of life for the two is seen to be the exact same because of this recognition. And so it's sort of like the great unifier of humanity, and he's linking it up with this fact of death. Death is what levels all of us the same degree, right? Okay, so that's kind of some interesting cool stuff. Here's one more, like we said. The nephew comes into the office. The nephew is depicted as like really warm, really hot. He was running through the streets. He was sweltering. He's all red. And I think he even described it as sort of like he was like steaming. Right after, Scrooge is described as being frozen, and everyone in the office is being frozen because Scrooge is there, and he comes in. So you get these two being contrasted with each other, as we've already known a little bit. And this is something that's missing in almost all of the film versions, the adaptations. But it's really important to note. I'll note this and then we can go. Super important to just keep this on the back burner. The nephew is related to Scrooge in an important way. In the next stave, you find out something really important about the nephew's mom, which is Scrooge's sister. Okay, you find something important about Scrooge and Scrooge's sister. This isn't in the film. How many people know this? I've only seen one film, it's like a 1930s or 40s film, Scrooge, where you get this scene. I haven't seen any other ones, but the sister is dying when she's giving birth to this nephew. Okay, and the nephew's born, and there's a conversation between that would be early speaking. The conversation between Scrooge and the sister, right? They're having a conversation with each other as she's dying, as she's giving birth to the nephew, and I'm not going to tell you what it is because it's in the next stave, the next chapter. But it's a really important conversation, and I just want you to keep in mind the attitude that Scrooge has towards his nephew. Right? So right now, like, just really, really, really focus on the fact that Scrooge treats his nephew as no different from the beggar that's coming in to ask for money, and he's like, get the hell out of here, you're wasting my time, right? He's as cold to the nephew as he is to the beggars that come in to the office, right? So you won't see the significance of Scrooge's like conversion unless you really kind of see how he is now, right? And Scrooge himself needs to come see how he is now, and in light of the past, in light of the future, right? His awareness of how he is now, in light of those things, is where the great wake-up call happens. Like, holy crap! What am I doing with my life? And so you need to go back into the past to see how Scrooge is related to his nephew, and his attitudes towards his nephew then, and what he said he wanted to do then, right? And contrast to how he is now. So just keep that in mind because it's gonna be a really interesting development. Okay, we will see you